The Crystal Maiden is a great example of a support hero. She's the first hero that comes to mind when it comes to talking about supports. Somehow, it happens so that the Crystal Maiden is the most famous support hero. In this video, we're going to tell you all about this character and how to play her right. Many people wrongfully believe that the CM always has to take one for the team, and go to extremes in order to help out our allies. Others think that the CM should stick to the greedy playstyle, for the hero is capable of jungling at the very start of the game. In fact, both playstyles have a place. However, it's critical to strike a happy medium between them in order to be efficient. We're going to be spectating a match of Team Secret at ESL One Hamburg. The team will emerge victorious. The player made the most of the CM in the final playoff matches, and the team was able to win every single game. Our hero's performance is definitely a good example to follow. We're going to analyze the two matches which took place in the last day of the tournament, and we'll tell you what is required to do in order to play the Crystal Maiden efficiently. First, it's important to figure out what our strong sides are. They matter because a pro player has to take them into account when choosing a certain playstyle in this or that match. This way, he'll be able to make the best of the chosen hero. There are exceptions to the rule, of course. Sometimes a hero is taken just to fill a certain role, even if he may not excel at it. Naturally, a choice of the kind won't be very efficient, but this is not the point here. So here are the strong sides of the CM. Crystal Nova, a strong nuke available to her at level 1. The ability to deal away with tanky neutrals and enemy summoned units with the help of Frostbite. It enables her to counter heroes like Shen or the Enchantress. Besides, she can also get a lot of gold out of it without stealing any farm from her cores. Also, she can farm very quickly because of her talent at level 15, which gives her plus 150 gold per minute. She only has to last long enough to skill it. The mana regen aura for allies. Lots of magical damage during the mid game and up to the late game. This point is of great interest. In fact, you'll only benefit from it in case you've had the time to secure some artifacts. Her weak sides, in turn, are one of the lowest movement speeds in the game, low survivability at all stages of the game, and weak teamfight potential. Given the above mentioned, it's possible to come up with the desired playstyle for CM. It's circled around the efficiency of the hero during the first minutes of the game. She can be productive thanks to her strong AoE nuke. Besides, in the middle of the mid-game, she gets to secure her first artifact that boosts survivability. Without it, the CM is unlikely to be of any help when engaged in a teamfight. The hero can get killed pretty quickly, but she has to live in order to be able to make use of her spells the right way. This is why she has to spend the second part of the laning stage and the first half of the mid-game farming to purchase an artifact that will boost her survivability. It's essential to move around the map as well. After all, you're a support. Don't just overindulge in it though. Otherwise you run the risk of being absolutely useless during the mid-game. A lot of things can happen during this period of the game, and one has to be prepared for it. The CM has to take pains to be efficient during the mid-game. On one hand, because of her poor survivability, she has to avoid taking part in early teamfights. On the other hand, her mana regen aura and the ability to farm without hurting the gold gain of her allies basically force her into making the most of her abilities. This is what Yapzor's playstyle was like during the final games at ESL. In fact, our fighter plays position 4 heroes in a very greedy fashion, and Secret let him play the CM for a reason. Playing against Virtus Pro and Vici Gaming, he resorted to the same strats. He was active during the first minutes of the game, and he made trouble for his enemies. Then, he busied himself with farming, maxing out his aura. As a result, he was greatly helping out his team despite the fact that he played the game fairly passively. It bore good fruit in the long run. In the heat of the mid-game, he showed up in fights with his Glimmer, which enabled him to use his ultimate properly time and time again. Even when Yapzor was playing passively, he was still able to make his teammates feel really comfortable. There was always enough mana, which was conducive to successful farming. Besides, our hero had many opportunities to set up efficient ganks. Invoker, Necrophos, Mirana, and Centaur had just enough mana, and thus they were more productive when it came to laning. It also let them play more aggressively. And Terrorblade never needed to spend his coins on Clarity, which is a popular item choice of agility-based cores. After a few successful teamfights, Yapzor got his level 15, and he started purchasing his artifacts. It wasn't long before Team Secret won the match. They kept strengthening their advantage, and Terrorblade made the most of it. We're going to tell you all about TV's contribution into the match in a separate video. In fact, the players used this hero very thoughtfully and efficiently. Naturally, things of the kind are worthy of attention. Surely, not every single pub game will go smoothly. It's highly likely that your teammates won't approve if you decide to play passively for some time. Still, it's critical to follow the mentioned strats and make the best of it despite the potential indignation of your allies. The thing is that if the CM doesn't have any artifacts on her during the late stages of the game, she'll be absolutely useless. Her spells are really powerful, but it's not enough to be a walking aura to lead your team to victory. This is why it's important to farm, preferably without hurting the gold gain potential of your team. It's essential to perform well, right at the start of the match, no matter how fragile the CM might be. Her stats are pretty much those of an average position 5 hero. Her Nova is really powerful, and the opponents won't feel like putting up a fight when being affected by it. In this regard, the hero appears to be pretty balanced, for one only has to come up with a proper playstyle in order to be efficient when playing the CM. We're going to take an in-depth look at it. At the 0 to 5 minute mark, active laning. Win the lane for your core. Between the 5 and 15 minute mark, rare participation in team fights. Rotate around the map only when you need to. Prioritize getting Glimmer Cape, an artifact that increases your survivability. After 15 minutes, taking part in team fights on a regular basis. Focus on team-oriented actions. On getting level 15, skill the GPM talent. It allows you to pretty much forget about farming. In this video, we highlighted 2 matches. We covered the game of Team Secret against VP, and we also analyzed the match of Team Secret against Vici Gaming at ESL One Hamburg. We drew your attention to specific in-game situations, and in case you want to watch the full replays of these games in order to have a better understanding of the CM's mechanics, then you're very welcome to do that. Indeed, every hero has to be played in a unique way, but there are things that one has to avoid doing at all costs in order to remain efficient. It's worth pointing out that it's better not to do the following things when playing the CM. Going for Hand of Midas first. Don't go for this artifact even if you want to skill your GPM talent at level 15, as fast as possible. Truth be told, the item used to be really popular on the CM. However, the meta was different back then, and the artifact worked well on almost any hero. But things have changed. The artifact cost almost as much as the useful Glimmer. In case you buy the former, you'll doom your team to failure. You'll either end up diving headlong into jungling, or you'll find yourself completely useless in the heat of the mid game, where it's critical to make the most of team fights. In case you've purchased Midas first, getting Glimmer next will not benefit your team, for you'll have to spend or rather waste extra time on farming. Besides, the level 15 talent is much more efficient than Midas in terms of gold gain during the late stages of the game. Speaking of experience, you'll surely get some out of team fights, especially if they go well, but it'll only be possible if you opt for the right items. Otherwise, the CM will be absolutely useless. Buying plenty of wards and taking one for the team. This playstyle, just like the previous one, might actually lead your team to victory. However, your impact during the late stages of the game will end up being minimal. The CM is not your usual support, and she doesn't like being used. Thus, she suffers greatly if she doesn't get enough farm. Her abilities are no longer efficient during the late game, and you'll find it pretty challenging to use them productively as the match progresses. Besides, it's likely that you'll end up dying pretty quickly. She's got only a single disable ability, and it's just not enough. Furthermore, she's got to have a high survivability in order to make the most of her ultimate. If you've chosen a playstyle of this sort, then you'll end up being a walking aura, and that's about it. Even the GPM talent won't save you. If you have no items on you, it'll be super hard not to die in team fights. What's more, you'll level up slowly, and you'll have to somehow catch up with the other heroes, which is a tedious process. So, make use of the CM's strong sides. After all, Yapzor clearly knew what he was doing when he chose to play the Crystal Maiden in an international tournament with a high prize pool.